Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to League Racing TV here for round number 10 of the Esports Masters League Console 1 Championship. My name is, of course, Michael Edwards, going to be taking you through the action as always on a Wednesday evening. And tonight, guys, we come here at round number 10. Is the Autodromo Humanas Rodriguez. It is the Mexican Grand Prix, and looking at the circuit in action here tonight, the 4.3 kilometers, 2.6 mile circuit in length, 2 DRS zones, one down the start finish straight, one down in towards turn number 4, going to be providing some decent overtaking opportunities. And of course, there is another DRS that goes down in towards turn number 12. Of course, the S is going to be very key for the drivers to hook up, as you gotta make sure that you keep it within the track limits, because it's very easy just to step over the boundaries and just step over the limits, pick up a needless warning or invalidation on your qualifying lap. But the 17 corners going to provide a variation of challenges. Of course, the first sector all about top end speed and getting a good run out of turn number 3 on towards turn number 4. Of course, sector 2, a very technical part of the circuit where it is all about precision on where you are placing your car, especially through those S's. And of course, the launcher you want to get through turns 10 and 11 onto that DRS straight down in towards turn number 12 is going to set you up for the final sector, which is of course in the stadium section. That is 100% for sure. But obviously 2 DRS detection points. You get the double DRS advantage on the run down the start finish straight and in towards turn number 4. So for cars that are going to be in behind the one just in front of them as they come onto the start of a lap, they're going to get the benefit of DRS down the start finish straight, and then they're going to have a second bite of the cherry to try and pull away in towards turn number 4, where of course we are going to see some lunges, I think, towards turn number 4. I mean, it is one of those corners where you are going to get a variation of overtaking maneuvers happening, but will we see any side-by-side action in the S's? So that is the big question. Of course, another big question is, will CPI wrap up the championship here tonight? Of course, it is round number 10. Round number 10 of 12. As you guys can see, CPI currently lead the championship standings by 55 points. Mathematically, it is possible for them to wrap up the championship here tonight. Of course, the maximum amount of points you can get in a race weekend is, of course, 42 points, which means 84 points is the magic number, 85 is the magic number, really, to completely put it out of question. But I believe CPI, even if it's 84 points, technically with the race wins this season, I think it's impossible for anyone to match their race wins, which I believe would make them champions regardless. But 30 points need to outscore Neverlast Racing by 30 points, and then obviously 32 points for Evisio Racing as well. It's going to be very interesting to see what will happen. Can CPI wrap it up here tonight? That is the big question. Nevertheless, Racing currently second place, obviously 55 points off the back of CPI. They're on 183 points, CPI on 238. And then Evisio Racing, EVE, have closed up dramatically with a fantastic result last time out in Singapore. They are now 2 points behind Neverlast Racing. So EVE on a late charge in this season to try and snack themselves a top 2 finish. Or maybe if CPI have a massive stumbling block, EVE or Neverlast Racing could take advantage of that and close up the gap on the team at the top, but time will tell now. On GT10 Grand Track 10 in 4th place on 163 points. Then we have a big old gap going back to IRT Esports, who are now up in 5th place. They have overtaken OVR, Optimum Racing, Optimum Velocity Racing. They have overtaken them. They're up in the P5 now with 116 points, 4 points ahead of OVR, we're on 112, and then 4 points back for them is FRT, Future Racing Team, on 108. So a nice freeway battle between those 3 teams for the 5th spot in the standings. Then, of course, looking a little bit further back from that, VMV on 51 points, just 7 points ahead of False Group Esports FGE, or on 44 points. And then, of course, Legacy Racing on 16 points. They were unable to pick up points last time out in Singapore, but there's still a chance that they can pick up some more points before the end of the season. Looking at the driver lineup here tonight, though, it looks like FGE coming in with Brent and Spender Zero MG. They're going to be in the Red Bulls representing FGE. LR coming through with Turbo Toms and Flume in the Mercedes. CPI coming through with Finley and Casper here tonight for CPI, looking to try to wrap up the championship as best they can. They're going to be in the McLarens, of course. GT10 with Mad Dogs and Duncan. They're in the Scuderia Ferraris. EVE coming in with Wessel and Lucas in the Aston Martins. OVR in the Alpines with Nassim and Mathis. VMV in the Williams with Imwa and Formula X10. FRT with Wards and Lucan. They're in the RBs. Nevertheless Racing with Ivan and Thomas in the Saubers. And then last but not least, IRT with Nick and Sieb in the Haas F1 cars. I'm just making sure now that there's no last minute changes in the lineups, as I don't believe there is, but we'll quickly have a check. Yeah, so it has, the last update was Finley jumping in for Francesco Lago, who was of course in the original lineup for CPA. And yeah, with the driver lineup here tonight, it's going to be interesting to see who is going to come out on top. Before we head out to the action on track, massive shout out to our sponsors at Ronin Printworks 3D for supporting the league over the course of this season. A fantastic sponsorship working with the Esports Masters League. But guys, without further ado, let's head out to the action out on track, because we are in the midst of qualifying right now, and it is Lucas for EVE that has set the provisional pole position time. We've got just under 10 minutes to go here in qualifying, so we have missed a decent amount, but lap times are in from pretty much everyone apart from Ivan. Casper, I don't believe that's a penalty, but we'll double check. I don't believe it's a penalty. Oh no, sorry, it is a penalty for CPI. So Casper serving that for the CPI team, and of course he'll be starting from the back of the grid. Will we see anyone break into the 12s? I wonder. That is going to be the big question, as I believe Nick is on an in-lap, as Watts has just finished his lap. Turbo Toms, I think, has just finished his lap as well. In-lap there for a lot of these guys. Yep, everyone coming in on an in-lap, I believe, right now. But right now it is Lucas for EVE, topping the times here in qualifying, looking to get that point for pole position. And it's going to be very interesting to see if EVE can continue this charge that they've been on as of late. Obviously, Wessel right now down in 15th place. Not exactly what he needs, but this is exactly what Neverlast Racing need, with Thomas up in second and Ivan up in fourth. This is exactly what Neverlast Racing need to try and claw themselves back into the championship fight. Of course, they are still second in the championship, but as mentioned, they are 55 points off the back of CPI, with Casper serving a qualifying ban and both drivers out qualifying Finley as it currently stands. It's going to be very interesting to see if Neverlast Racing are going to be getting a huge amount of points on CPI here tonight. But what we're going to do, we're going to go on a full lap right now with Finley, as we get ourselves prepared to go underway here on a lap of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, the Mexican Grand Prix circuit, as we come out the final corner, foot to the floor, and we begin the lap with Finley. Coming up to the DRS line, of course, opening DRS as we run down in towards the braking of turn number 1. Using an awful lot of battery down the start from the straight, but that is to maximise the top end speed. Breaking into turn number 1, big lock up on the front right, but swings it through turns 1, 2 and 3. Absolutely lovely. And now opening DRS a second time on the run down in towards turn number 4. Through a second split, 10th and a half up for Finley. Through turn number 4 now in towards turn number 5. And of course turn number 6, the double right-hander here, where you want to be hitting the apex there on the exit, and Finley does just that. Through turn number 6 now in towards the S's at 7. Through turn number 8 in towards turn number 9. Now this one here, turn number 10, really important to set yourself up through 11. Now DRS wide open as we run down in towards the bacon for turn number 12. Using all the track possible is Finley, as we now come through 13, 14 and 15 now in towards the final 2 corners of 16 and 17, coming through to set a lap time. Finley 2.5 times up, and it is a 12.9 for the CPI man. Goes on a provisional pole position. CPI Finley topping the times for CPI here tonight. Lucas will get his lap underway. We got Thomas on a invalidated lap. Ivan not too far behind. They're on out laps right now. Nick on a flying lap, just started. We'll come back on board with him in just a moment. Steve's just started his lap. Matisse invalidating his lap. Brent getting out of the way of someone who is on a fast lap. We got Wessel to the line. 3.5 times up is Wessel. Up in the P8 goes the EVE man. As we got Duncan, who is up in on his lap time. 2 LR drivers here tonight. Is fantastic to see. Of course, for the majority of the season, LR have been plagued by only having the 1 driver available to them. So if a bad race happened to one of them, then it's a bad race for the team. But both drivers for LR here tonight gives them a better opportunity in scoring points to try and close the gap on the teams up ahead in FGE and of course the MV. On board with Lucas now in this middle sector split, as DRS is wide open running down, and he is 65 thousandths of a second up on his lap time, which is enough right now to put him on provisional pole position, but he needs to make sure he hooks up the final sector. Coming through the final 2 corners now, 16 and 17. To the line will come Lucas, keeping it nice and tight to the line. Lucas to the line, and he improves by a 10th of a second. It's a 12.905 EVE. Lucas taking the lap time back, and Thomas getting all out of shape there, as we got Ivan, who is a 10th up in the middle sector. Let's see what the Neverlast Racing driver can do. This would be enough to put in a challenge with Lucas right now, but can he find any more time? Oh, he just loses a bit in the final sector, does Ivan, so he doesn't improve as much as he would have wanted. Woods for FRT goes up into P6, a good lap there for him. And of course FRT, IRT and GT10 all in a personal battle for P5 in the championship. Turbo Tom's there in P8 for LR. Good going there from him. Duncan's back into the pits. Mattis is on outlap. Brent is a 10th up in, I believe he's just finished his lap actually. He improved by a 10th to the Brent. Flume there getting a little bit out of shape in the final sector. And of course Jav in the chat saying it's a shame to hear about EVE's folding at the end of the game. Hopefully we have some good battles in the remaining rounds, and absolutely Jav 100% echo that sentiment. Obviously I've not been on the social, so I've not actually seen this announcement, Jav, so you caught me a little bit off guard with it, to be honest with you, mate. You caught me a little bit off guard, but yeah, it is a shame to see EVE, a fantastic team, and they've provided some fantastic performances this year in the Esports Masters League, and as a team they will surely be missed, that is for sure. And a lot of talented drivers within that team that honestly it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the new game cycle, because there's a lot of talent at EVE. The question is, where will they end up? Where will they end up at the start of the next game cycle? That is the question. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of teams already, doing the works and that, making sure that they can snap up the creme de la creme of EVE for their esports teams to improve their depth and their quality going into the next game cycle. on board with Mataso for OVR. And of course, OVR need a big performance here because they've been overtaken by IRT and they are also under threat from FRT. Remember, earlier on in the season, OVR were in that battle with the likes of GT10 and EVE. They weren't too far off the back in their last race either, but they have fallen away in the second half of the season. Matisse up into P7, exactly what they need, as Thomas is just getting his lap underway. So stay on board with the Neverlast Racing driver, who is looking to try and get himself ahead of Finley, the CPI man, and Thomas just getting a little bit hot on the brakes. I think he might have already said, yeah, that lap is over and done with, and yeah, I think so. Potentially. Yeah, he's backed off on his ERS altogether. Yeah, Thomas, the unfortunate for him, but that's just the way it does go here at Mexico sometimes. Nick has invalidated on his lap. Sieb is just getting himself started on his lap. As we got Mad Dogs here for GT10 coming for the final corner now. So he comes to the line down in the 18th place. The GT10 man climbs up in the P12. Good improvement from Mad Dogs, but obviously he would want to be starting inside the top 10, and that is not going to help him get inside that top 10, that is for sure. Flume is just getting his lap underway. We got Formula X getting out of the way of a couple of guys in behind, but let's go on board with Sieb marginally up in the first sector, as I believe Sieb will be the first man to see the checker flag. As you see the whole group of cars coming through the final sector right now, making sure they try to get themselves enough of a gap where they can get themselves going in the right direction. But see, keeping it all valid in the S's. We have an EVE car in behind, but Sieb is a 10th up in the middle sector, throws it through turn number 12 in towards the hard left-hander at 13, through 14 and 15 now into the 16 and through 17. Final corner to the line will come Sieb. What's it going to be? P13 for Sieb. So that is going to be Lucas improving on his lap time. I believe that's Nassim going up in the P5 there, as we got one of the Scuderia Ferraris. I believe that is, it's not Mad Dogs, that is Duncan. Duncan's into the pit lane, and that is his session over and done with. Flume into the pits as well. Formula X on a lap. Let's go on board with some of these guys towards the sharp end, as we got Thomas there unable to find time. Finley is invalidated on this time. Luca to the line, just come through in P4. Ivan in P5. Wards to the line for FRT. Improves onto the front row. The FRT man, Wards, onto the front row of the grid. A brilliant lap at the end from the FRT man, and he puts himself right where he needs to be. Brent up in the P10. Big improvement from him, and a 10th improvement from Formula X10. Puts himself ahead of Flume to start this race in P17. Well, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of qualifying, and it is EVE's Lucas that puts it on provisional pole. Sorry, not provisional pole. He puts it on pole position. Sorry, my bad. Let's run you through the order. It is Lucas for EVE on pole position, taking that pole position point ahead of FRT's Wards, who will join him on the front row. CPI's Finley right there in P3 with Neverlast Racing's Thomas in P4. Luca for FRT in P5 with Ivan for Neverlast Racing in P6. Then we got the OVR pairing of Nassim and Mathis there in 7th and 8th, sharing the 4th row with Imra and Brent completing the top 10. Outside the top 10 we got Turbo Toms, Nick, Wessel, Mad Dogs, Sieb, Duncan, Formula X, Flume, Spinders and Casper are going to be starting from the back of the field. Well, what a qualifying session that was at the end. It was the EVE man taking the pole position, and of course in terms of the championship standings, just quickly giving you guys a reminder, EVE, Neverlast Racing, 1 point between them now. EVE are currently on 182 points, Neverlast Racing on 183. Very close between those two teams, that is for sure. And with Casper starting down the back of the field. Now, this is where, obviously, pole position is great to get around here. it's great to absolutely get to what's called. It's great to get pole position around you, but this is where things are going to get interesting, because probably the worst place you want to start around the circuit like Mexico is on the front row of the grid. So while Lucas and Ward's fantastic qualifying laps from them both, the issue that they're going to have is the slipstream that Finley, Thomas, Luca and Ivan are going to get on the run down in towards turn number 1. And of course, Jav in the chat saying Luca and Ivan, same time, close. Absolutely. And of course, looking at the times as well, I mean, Ward's were a 12.977. You look back and there's half a tenth between himself in second place and Nassim in 7th on a 13.041. So very close at the sharp end of the field, that is for sure. Less than 2.5 tenths separating the top 7. Honestly, it's very interesting. As Harvey in the chat said, FRT cooking finally. Potentially, and this is where things are going to get interesting, because FRT, as you can see in the standings, they are battling for P5. But if they can get some good point hauls in the remaining rounds of the championship, they can maybe mount a late charge on GT10. Because GT10, they have been scoring points as the team in the Scuderia Ferrari, but they've not been huge points as we saw from them early on in the season. They can be got at, and IRT, OVR, FRT, they're in their three-way battle right now for P5. But a big result for one or maybe two of those teams could see them maybe try to drag GT10 into that battle. Time will tell though, and that is going to be an interesting one to find out, of course. Guys, we will be back in just a moment as we head to the small intermission, but we will be back on the other side as we head to those 5 red lights for the Mexican Grand Prix. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the intermission break. Of course, before we went to the break, it was EVE's Lucas taking pole position here in Mexico, round number 10 of the championship, and EVE closing in on Neverlast Racing by getting that all-important pole position point. Quick reminder of the point system here in the Esports Masters League. It is 22 points for the race win, 18 points for second place, 15 points for third, 12 points for fourth, 11 points for fifth, and then it continuously goes down in increments of 1 until you get to P15, where you pick up one singular point. Of course, there is a point for the pole position as well as the fastest lap, which means theoretically the maximum you can get out of a race weekend is 42 points, which means there is 126 points up for grabs. And looking at the championship, if CPI can build the gap to 85 points at the end of this race, they will be crowned champions of Season 8 here in the Esports Masters League. CPI currently 55 points ahead of Neverlast Racing. They are 56 points ahead of Evisio Racing right now. So that is the goal for CPI. If they can't wrap it up here tonight, then to minimize any, well, pretty much, if they can't wrap it up here tonight and they get outscored by Neverlast Racing and Evisio Racing, their goal is going to be to minimize the damage, that is for sure, and make sure that when we go to the next round of the championship, they have it all in their hands. Quick reminder of the circuit that we are racing at here tonight, the Mexican Grand Prix, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, 4.3 kilometers, 2.6 miles, 17 corners, 3 DRS zones, 1 down the start finish straight, 1 in towards turn number 4, and 1 down towards turn number 12 as you come in towards the stadium section. Of course, the altitude at which we are racing at here tonight is the highest on the F1 calendar, and of course is going to be a very draining time for all the drivers out there in terms of track limits. Expect a few 3-second time penalties to be picked up here tonight. Very, very easily done in that middle sector as you come through the S's. But guys, as we are here, we are about to go racing in just a moment's time as the drivers are currently picking their setups. As you can see from the skies, a little bit overcast. Could we get changeable conditions here tonight? Potentially we could be seeing some interesting conditions here tonight. Guys, let me know in the chat, who are your favorites for the race win? Will CPI wrap up the championship here tonight? Will it be EVE or Neverlast Racing in P2 of the championship by the end of the evening? And who will be getting P5 in the championship? Let me know that one as well, as we wait to get ourselves underway here for round number 10. Of course, a big opportunity for Neverlast Racing and EVE, with CPI serving a qualifying ban for one of their drivers who will be starting all the way down in last place. That's Casper, of course, and we'll see how he can do, because here we go now to those 5 red lights. Gets underway here for round number 10. Lights are out and we are underway, as is a good start there from Lucas and Wards, who gets a much better second place at the start. Here comes Thomas, so we're on the run down in towards turn number 1 as Finley and Thomas side by side doing battle, as is almost 4 wide on the run down in towards turn number 1, and is Wards able to hold on to P2, but Finley's still there on the inside. And it looks like contacts are both being dragged off as Finley and Wards falling down the order. Look at this, Turbo Thomas parting the Red Sea, coming through the middle. Thank you very much. I'll take those 2 positions. Thank you very much, sir. As Finley is all the way down to the back of the field, as Wessel and Imwa, they're duking it out in the middle sector. Side-by-side action between Nick and Duncan as well. Looks like Nick's just got the edge over the GT10 man, as Seb and Imwa side-by-side coming into the S's. Need to be careful here, because it's very easy to just lose the car. A little bit of side-by-side contact, and look at that, Formula X taking advantage of the off-put. Seb, same as Casper here, who is going to get a move done up into P5. P15, but absolute heartbreak if you're a CPI fan, with Finley falling all the way down the order. Duncan and Nick still battling out there. Oh, Duncan hung out to dry by Nick coming through turn 15, but look at that at the front. It is Lucas who has already got an 8-10 for a gap lead to Thomas in second place. Luca there for FRT currently in third, Ivan in fourth. Then we got the OVR appearing of Mattis and Nassim in fifth and sixth, and Woods after that getting tangled up with Finley at the start of the race. He's in seventh place, but Finley all the way down into the pit lane, and I think maybe a front wing change for Finley there. That is the tyre selection of which everyone is on right now. As you can see, majority of the grid on the set of the medium compound tyres. Finley's just opted to put on the set of the hards in this race. At Seed and Imwa also on the set of the hards to begin this race. 36 laps around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and we will be seeing who is going to come out on top. Right now, this is perfect if you are Never Last Racing, because right now Casper is down in 15th place. A lot of cars to go through, and Finley right now is essentially in no man's land because he's on the hard tyres, which he's got to get up to temperature and everything first. He's got to get them rubbered in, and at the same time as well, he's going to be losing out on the DRS because the DRS is so powerful. As Nassim there picks up the fastest lap of the race thus far, as that is Wessel into the pit lane for EVE as well. So Wessel, it's not looking good for Wessel and EVE. Maybe a small bit of wing damage, but look at this at the front, as it is Luca holding off Ivan for P3, the final podium position, whilst he's trying to put a bit of pressure on Thomas for P2 in this race. As a little peek at the inside, as you can see there, no ERS deployed for Thomas going into the braking, trying to save up as much of that battery as possible. Now for Lucas, he tried to pull away as much as possible on the opening lap. He got to 8/10 of a second, but now with DRS enabled for all these guys behind, he is going to struggle to break these guys out of DRS range. And right now, looking at the guys towards the back, I mean, you're seeing Finley there, he's 10 seconds off the back of Wessel. Wessel is 18 seconds now off the back of Spinders, Spinder 0, as he's about 2 seconds off the back of this DRS train that goes from P1 all the way down to P17 as we begin lap number 4 in this race. Casper, a new fastest lap for him, he's up to P12. What a start Casper's had for CPI, from last on the grid up to P12. Good going there from Casper, as it looks like Thomas there just has enough straight line speed to hold off Luca, but Luca getting a better run out of turn number 3, and is potentially going to have a little luck down the inside in towards turn number 4, potentially keeps his nose there. And now a little bit of a switchback here from Luca as he comes into the double right-hander, but no, he's not going to go for the move. Turbo Toms and Wards here ghosting through each other. I'm not sure what has happened there for the ghosting, but you see a little bit of a snap there for Turbo Toms, the LR man, trying to score big points for his team because he knows he's got the pace to be in the top 10. The question is, will he maintain it? So many times this season we've seen Turbo Toms show good pace and then fall away due to variation of incidents, whether it's an incident with another car or an incident in terms of just having the strategy wrong, losing the back end, etc, etc. But is tonight the night for Turbo Toms and LR? Wards doing a fantastic job for FRT in terms of qualifying after getting caught up in that incident with Finley, who is now down in 18th place. So it looks like we've had another set of pit stops as Turbo Toms and Mattis here, and we just come on to the end of that argy-bargy through turns 2 and 3 between Turbo Toms and Mattis here, and that's going to allow Wards now to pounce down the inside of Mattis. He's still there on the inside, squeezes them out to dry. Is Mattis there trying to squeeze out? So track is Wards, and maybe we could be seeing elbows out already. And remember, OVR have got to stay ahead of FRT and try to re-overtake P5 from IRT, as well as try to close in on GT10 in the championship. But Duncan, Nick and Brent side by side, and Casper trying to get involved as well down the inside. I think that's a little bit rash there from Casper to try and send one down the inside. Maybe the rumour was there, who knows. Mathis is into the pit, and that is going to allow everyone to jump up an extra position. Here comes Casper looking at the back of Duncan, who's looking at the back of Brent, running down as Lucas and Thomas are battling out for the race lead. But we are going to stay on board to see what happens here, as it's Casper getting the job done on Duncan and Brent. Up into P9 goes the CPI man, and it looks like Lucas has held on to the race lead. But look at Luca around the outside of Thomas, trying to make a stick as he tries to hug the inside line to get the better run, but he just cannot do it. Harvey in the chat saying, what is Mattis doing? I'm just going to say, if the team's have an issue, put it into the stewards. That's all I'm going to say. But Wards right now needs an awful lot of help to try and get himself back into a position where he can get within the DRS range, as Luca has just been overtaken by Ivan. So it's now a double podium for Never Last Racing. They are currently up in P2 and P3. Casper down in P9. And if I'm Casper, if I'm CPI right now, I am looking at the potential of Casper possibly going for the undercut, as Turbo Toms gets ahead of Wards, Casper gets ahead of Nick. Up in the P8 goes Casper, Turbo Toms up in the P6, and what's called, we in the chat we got even Kamari saying they lost the train to the top 5. That could be crucial. It really could. Turbo Toms is doing his best to try and close that gap down, as Casper now overtaking Wards up in the P7, and Casper could be the man to get him back within the train with the top 5. Remember, it is 1.4, so only 4 attempts needed for these guys to get back within the DRS train. And Harvey in the chat saying he had damage and was defending for his life while wheel locking. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he got his elbows out to allow Nassim to get away his teammate up the road, which, I mean, fair enough to help your teammate out, I guess. But of course, if anyone does have any issues with it, of course, please raise it up with the stewards office after the race has concluded. But right now, 1.2, 1.3 the gap. DRS will now allow Casper to put Turbo Toms under big pressure here, and we're going to see what's going to happen. But let's go towards the front and see if Thomas is going to be putting any pressure on Lucas here. No, he is not. What about Casper? Casper, no, he's not going to go for it on Turbo Toms. Nick and Wards switching positions. Same with Imwa and Duncan in behind as well. 2 seconds now, the gap between Turbo Toms and Nassim, and this is how crucial DRS is around Mexico. As Ivan Kalani said, they've lost the train to the top 5, and it could be crucial, and this is why it could be crucial. Losing DRS just hemorrhages you time down the start finish straight, down in towards turn number 4 and in towards turn number 12. It is around about 2 seconds now. DRS, we should see this gap potentially rise to around 2.1 going into the break-in, as Turbo Toms is very unstable on the turning in towards turn number 12, as Casper now is going to be sizing up a move on the LR man. And let's see if Casper is going to make this work. Thomas up ahead, close to the back of Lucas. We should be seeing 2 overtakes happen in just a moment's time, as there goes Casper. DRS wide open, up into P2 he goes. Meanwhile, Thomas up into P1 ahead of Lucas. Ivan there, not trying to follow his teammate through, wants to sit in behind. In P3 for the time being. Luca there in P4 for FRT. Nassim in P5, and you see Casper 2 seconds off the back in Nassim. And now we're going to see what Casper's pace is like, because he's got to close this gap down. He needs to close this gap down, and he's closing it down rapidly. Look at that, 0.3 of a second gained in the space of 2 corners for Casper. and the CPI team. And that is crucial because Casper right now is the man that has to do the heavy lifting for CPI as it currently stands, because Finley, after being hooked early on with Wards in the instant going through turns number 3, Finley is all the way down in P18 now. And a heartbreak for him, but he's got a long race. He could potentially come back in this. We're only on lap 9 of 36, and Casper has almost got himself a win. DRS range, and there it is. There's the trigger. He's come into the pit lane. The undercut now for Casper, and this was what I was going to say with Casper. He could go for the undercut to try and get the jump on some of these guys. As Flume has also come into the pits, as you see Nick again through on Turbo Toms, as Lucas is now back through on Thomas up into, is that, as it's a bit of a lag right there going on for Ivan and Luca. I'm not sure if this is my end or if this is Luca there is bouncing around all over the place on my screen at least. We're gonna have to, I think it is my end where this bouncing is occurring. We will have to bear with it for the time being. Let me know how the stream is affected. Of course, Imar overtaken by Seb. What happened to Wards? Wards and Finley got tangled up together on in the early stages of this race, and Finley had to make an early pit stop, potentially for some front wing repairs. Wards has been able to continue on, but in his battles he has lost touch with the top 5, and he's been in this battle with the likes of Seb, with the likes of Nassim, Mad Dogs, Turbo Toms, etc, etc. He's been caught in this battle as we got Casper now coming down the start finish straight. How many positions does Casper get now as we all come out of the pit? As he is going to jump ahead of Nassim, so that's exactly what Casper needed, and he's within DRS range of Ivan, who's in DRS range of Lucas. So this is brilliant for Casper. He's got himself up effectively into a net P3 right now. But yeah, that's what happened with Wards. Wards involved in an incident with Finley at the start of this race, jumping down off the top guys at the front, and then being caught behind Mattis, who got his elbows out as he was coming into the pits with damage himself. They lost the DRS train to the top 5, and since then Wards has been trying to get himself back into this race, as now with the pit phases now happening, Wards is 1.4 off the back of Turbo Tom, so maybe there is damage on that RB. Let's have a little look. Let's have a little look and see. No visual damage for Wards, but visual damage may not equate to actual damage on that car. Maybe Wards has damage on that car that we just do not know about yet. Meanwhile, now we got the leaders into the pit, and it's going to allow Casper going to be side by side with Thomas. He's actually going to get ahead of Thomas, so Casper right now has got himself into a P3 net, as it looked like that. Nassim with wing damage here on the front left, as we just saw him battling with Thomas side by side on the run through turn number 1. Yep, it is front left end plate gone for the Welshman, for the OVR man in P7, and that is now going to hinder him through this middle sector. Luca is now going to have to be very careful behind the OVR man, because he could be susceptible to Nick behind. Of course, Nick does have a penalty to his name, so that will be applied later down the line, but for Luca, he's going to be closing up through the S's with more downforce available to him with a full front wing. But Nassim now, he has to be so careful now with that front wing damage. He doesn't want to chip any more of it off and fall further away from these guys. He needs to make sure he stays within DRS range. Maybe go for an undercut late on in this race. Who knows? I believe obviously this is one of those circuits where historically the one stop and two stop strategies generally are pretty pretty good versus each other. As here goes Lucas down the inside of Ivan, back for the race lead as Thomas and Casper side by side coming through turns 2 and 3. Remember, this is important. Never Last Racing versus CPI. And look at this. 3 wide down in towards turn number 4, and it's going to be Thomas that backs out as Nassim going to try to hold it all the way around the outside of turn number 4, and he got the inside for turn number 5. Job done there for Nassim. So opportunistic there for the OVR man. Gets the move done on Thomas, and while Thomas was looking for a move on Casper, he's now behind the OVR man with wing damage in Nassim. As Brent picks up a 3-second time penalty. Nick getting a brilliant run out of turn number 11 and 10 as we run down towards turn 12 now in towards turn number 13. The IRT man looking to do the business for IRT here tonight. Remember, they have just overtaken OVR in the standings to jump themselves up into P5 in the standings. And right now, the only OVR man in the top 10 is Nassim. Remember, Sieb yet to make a pit stop. Nick with a penalty to his name. He's got to be on the move, and we're going to look from the front of Luca here for FRT, who are of course also in that battle as that is squeezing Thomas off on the exit of turn 3 right there, and Thomas might not be too happy about that. As Thomas will try to close back up to go for the move on Nick in this race. Nick really getting his elbows out there through the exit of turn number 3. But right now it is Lucas in the net race lead for EVE. Ivan there in the net P2 for Never Last Racing. Casper in the net P3 for CPI. Nassim for OVR in the net P4. Nick right now in the net P5, but with that 3-second time penalty, he would lose positions. Then we got Thomas in net P6, Luca in the net P7, Turbo Toms in the net P8, Wards in the net P9, and Mattis for OVR in the net P10. Now, Sieb and Imwa appear to be working together to try and DRS tow each other because they're both on the hard to medium strategy. And we're going to see if it's going to be a 1-stop for him or a 2-stop for him at some point in this race. But Ivan back through on Lucas up into the race lead. Casper not going to follow Ivan through. He's going to be patient sitting behind, because remember, Lucas will not have DRS down in towards turn number 4. It's just a 1 detection point for these 2 DRS zones, and that's of course in the final sector of the circuit, and of course as you come through turn number 14 and 15. As Turbo Toms and Lucan there in P9 and 10 battling out for position out on track. The LR man versus the FRT man, and of course FRT, they are also in that battle with OVR and IRT for some big points here tonight. Of course, qualifying, FRT had a front row qualifier with Awards getting P2 in qualifying. Didn't quite get the pole position. That of course went to EVE's Lucas, but he got himself onto the front row. Of course, the incident between himself and Finley dropped him down the order. Finley yet to recover from that. He's on 13 lap old hard compound tyres, down in 18th place, but there are some guys with penalties up ahead of him, so a safety car would really help out Finley in the latter stages of this race, that is for sure. Duncan getting overtaken by Brent. Up into P12 goes the FGE man and GT10, who are of course 4th in the championship. There is potential that they could be caught up by the likes of OVR, FRT and IRT. As speaking of IRT, Nick's gone around side by side with Thomas coming through turn number 6. A bit of side pod contact, and that was enough to send Nick around down towards the back of the points paying positions. Heartbreak there for Nick and IRT, that is 100% for sure. Back up towards the front battle though, as Ivan 8 tenths ahead of Lucas there in second place, and then I got half a second gap to Casper. Nassim with that wing damage is doing very well thus far. He is using a bit of battery to close up, so he's trying to offset any time gain. Thomas right there in P7 as we see Flume out of this race, into the pit lane, out of this race, the LR man, and that is not what you want to see. Hopefully we can find out what happened to Flume here tonight, but LR once again going to have to be relying on this man in P8, Turbo Toms, to get them some points here tonight. Remember, they're on 16 points for the entirety of the season. They need a lot more if they want to be catching the likes of FGE and VMV. Of course, Formula X10 down in 18th place. We had Spinders 0 down in 17th place. Of course, we got Brent in 12th. With a penalty as well to his name, so I mean there was possibilities of LR getting some big points on these guys. Imwa yet to make a pit stop, so we don't know exactly where his true position is as of yet until the pit stop has been made. But look at this coming through the final corner now as Seb and Imwa trade positions up at the front, and now we're going to see if there's going to be any overtaking maneuvers happening down the start finish straight, as it looks like Thomas closing in on Nassim, and here comes Thomas to Neverlast Racing down the inside. Oh, just about gets on the brakes enough to stop careering into Casper. That was heart in mouth moment right there, not only for Neverlast Racing but also for CPI as well. Thomas, such closing speed, late on the brakes, almost goes careering in towards Casper, and that would have been a very tasty one for the stewards, I can assure you of that, and that would have been a tasty one for both of the supporters in the chat also. But Casper and Thomas able to get out of it without any major calamities here tonight, fortunately for those two. But Thomas now up into a net P4, Nassim down to a net P5 in this race, and Turbo Toms in a net P6. 8.5 seconds the gap between Seb and Ivan. Of course, those hard compound tyres for the front two. They're going deep into this race, but they are beginning to lose a lot of ground to the guys in behind, as you would expect. And the question is going to be, when does the pit stop happen for the front two, and do they have enough time to get back through the field on fresh medium compound tyres? As Casper now down the inside of Lucas here for the net P2, and it's going to be Lucas that will hold on to that position for the time being. But that might have just hindered Casper, because Thomas now a better run out of turn 3, closing in, and he's going to try around the outside of Casper. Yeah, this will be fantastic. He'll pull it off around the outside, turns to the inside for turn number 5, and it is fantastic there from Thomas, getting the move done on Casper. Thomas for Neverlast Racing up into a net P3 now in this race. I'm going to say, yep, net P3 ahead of Casper, who's down to a net P4. Brilliant stuff there from the Neverlast Racing team, as Thomas and Ivan working together as a cohesive unit right now. Both of them in a net podium position in this race. They're taking a huge amount of time out of the cars up ahead. Lap 20 of 36. Imwa leads the way ahead of Seb, both yet to make a pit stop in this race. They will fall down the order once they do. So it will be Ivan ahead of Lucas, ahead of Thomas. A double Neverlast Racing podium as it currently is. And look at this, Thomas having a look down the inside, trying to outbreak the EVE man down the inside. He'll go, tries to look for the better run out of turn number 3. Does not get the better run though. And I might be susceptible now to Casper, because here comes Casper. He's going to look to the outside line, the same as Thomas did. Thomas going to try to outbreak him down the inside. They'll go side by side, wheel to wheel action between Neverlast Racing and CPI, and it's going to be Casper that comes out on top this time around. But Casper runs a little bit deep through turn number 6. I might allow Thomas to come back at him, but no, Thomas is going to sit in behind and wait for the opportunity. But look at the gap now. 7.5 tenths between Lucas and Casper, and this is where the battling could hinder Thomas and Casper, because if they lose a DRS, these guys up ahead, it's going to be a very difficult job to get it back without some battling from Lucas and Ivan up in front. Wessel with a 10-second time penalty, speeding into the pit lane, retires from the race. So EVE lose one of their drivers here tonight. No points for EVE. That is 100% guaranteed now. Finley for CPI, still not scoring any points here for CPI. So right now it is all on Casper to bring home the points for CPI as Duncan gets through on Wards. GT10 getting ahead of FRT could be important for GT10 as a team in this race. But basically we have a train, a DRS train from P3 with Ivan all the way down to P9 in Lucan. The FRT man tailing this train, and remember this train is for the net race win here. So we got Ivan ahead of Lucas, ahead of Casper, ahead of Thomas, ahead of Nassim, ahead of Turbo Toms, ahead of Lucan here. And a fantastic run from Thomas through the S's. He's not going to risk going for a move down in towards turn number 12. He's going to sit in behind the CPI man and wait for the opportunity down the start from the straight. It does appear that Thomas might have a car that is slightly accustomed to straight line speed. And there we go, Sieb, the first of the hard runners into the pit lane. And let's see where Sieb comes out in this, because obviously they started on the hard tyres. He's going to be on a set of the mediums now to the end of this race. Lap 22 of 36. Sieb is going to fall all the way down the order, but he's going to have very fresh mediums. He's going to have a pace advantage on those medium compound tyres. The question is, how much work does Sieb have to do to get himself back into a top 10 shout? He's going to come out just behind Mattis in P15, so he's in the points. So Sieb is still within the points paying positions as he comes out in P15, as Finley is just being overtaken by Spinders 0, and he is down to P17, and there goes Sieb through on Mattis. Now up into P14 goes the IRT man, and we're going to see that gap between himself and Mad Dogs absolutely fly down, and then we're going to see the gap between himself and his teammate Nick fly down. The question will be, can he get onto this 3-car train of Wards, Duncan and Brent before the end of this race? Potentially with the grip advantage he'll have, but I just don't know if he's going to get into this train of Ivan down to Lucan. That's going to be the big tall order in this race for not only Sieb but also for Imwa as well, who is now into the pit lane. Ivan takes the race lead proper on lap 23 of 36. It is Neverlast Racing currently taking the race win ahead of EVE, who will get themselves a podium. CPI currently in P3 with Casper. They're at P1, P4 at the moment for Neverlast Racing. They're going to want a little bit more. Finley not scoring points for CPI as it currently stands, but he may go for the fastest lap to make sure he brings home a point for CPI. You saw Casper there have a little look down the inside of Lucas, and that just unsettled him a little bit and opened the door momentarily for Thomas. Duncan and Wards side by side through turn number 6, and it's going to be Duncan for GT10 get himself ahead of the FRT man, who looked incredible in qualifying. I'm not sure if he's got any form of damage on that car, because in the race he's just not looked the same as he has in qualifying. And now we have Sieb on the back of Mad Dogs in this race, and I think he's going to wait for the start finish straight, and that'd be wise of him to do so. Wait for the start finish straight before going for an overtake, as now we come on to lap 24 of 36. Ivan still holding the race lead. Here comes Casper though on Lucas, and he's going to go to the inside. Is the CPI man. Evie is going to try to defend all the way around the outside, turns to the inside for turn number 2, and then Casper will have the inside for turn number 3, as it looks like now Thomas going to get into the fray as well. Remember, EVE and Neverlast Racing are battling for P2 in the championship, but both of them with a opportunity of closing in on CPI here. Of course, EVE is not going to be as dramatic as Neverlast Racing's closing in, as Nassim up in the P4 gets the move done on Lucas, who gets hung out to dry by Thomas, and that allows Nassim to get through up in the P4. But what I was going to say is EVE with Wessel out of this race, and Finley down in P16 at the moment, as Lucas has been overtaken by Turbo Toms. And Turbo Tom's not holding back. He wants to go for it and try to get LR as many points as possible. And remember, they're on 16 points in 10th place in the championship. They are still not out of contention, or maybe catching up the likes of VMV and FGE in terms of the championship coming into the latter stages. Mad Dogs with a 3-second time penalty. Heartbreak for GT10. As here comes Lucas, maybe on a little luck. Brent getting back through on Wards. That 3-second time penalty though, looming over Brent's head. Not going to be ideal for him. Lap 25 of 36. Neverlast Racing is gaining huge on CPI here tonight. And this could change the dynamic of the final 2 races in this season. Finley right now scoring no points for CPI, down in 16th place, 7.1 seconds off the back of Mattis, and he's on older, harder compound tyres. So yes, Mattis does have a time penalty, so a safety car would really help CPI's chances of mitigating a huge amount of points loss here tonight, because you believe that Finley on the same compound tyre would be able to count his way through some of these guys. Lucas and Lucan, they're battling out for P6. And it is FRT versus EVE, and EVE is going to come out on top of this one. And now onto the start finish straight. Lucan tucked in right behind the EVE man, and he'll get the benefit of that tow, but he's not going to use any battery this time around. And that's him closing in a straight line on Thomas, but not close enough to go for a move here as we come on to a lap 26 of 36. As Imwa and Seeb, I do think they are working together. They understand the task at hand. They've done well. They both got themselves back up into a contention for a top 10 finish with Duncan and Brent's time penalties. They could very well get into this DRS train with Wards, Duncan and Brent. And if they can get in this DRS train and dispatch them, maybe with the continuous battling up ahead, maybe we'd see the medium runners getting into this train for the top end of the points, and maybe we'll see some late overtakes. Inmar closing in over half a second in that middle sector, and fantastic right there from Inmar and VMV, who of course trying to make sure that they are the team that finishes in 8th place in the championship, ahead of FGE, and of course ahead of LR. Of course, Turbo Toms right now is in a brilliant position. Lugaso is closing in on him. Is he going to be close enough to go for a move? He has a little peek. He tries to outbrake. Lucas down the inside of Turbo Toms here. Spin the 0. And contact there between Turbo Toms and Nassim through turn number 2. And that has sent Turbo Tom down into P7. Is there any wing damage on that Mercedes? Visually, it doesn't appear so. So maybe he's got away with that one. But Lucan and Lucas side by side coming through turns number 4 and 5. And Lucas there getting the better of Lucan in P5 and P6. Support in the chat for OVR. Of course, OVR need to score as many points as possible because they are now in a top 5 battle with IRT and FRT. FRT have 2 drivers inside the top 10. OVR have Nassim, who is currently in P4, but in this DRS train, you just never know what is going to happen in terms of that. But Lucan getting a 3-second time penalty, pretty much as long as everyone else keeps it clean in front, cements himself P7 at best. Obviously, at the moment, I think he does drop behind his teammate Wards, who will now get himself ahead of Duncan. Up in the P8 goes Wards, and now Imwa and Seeb on those medium compound tyres are almost on the back of this train up ahead. Now this could be crucial for Lucan in terms of that 3-second time penalty. Remember, he's got 2 seconds back towards well, 2.5 seconds back towards. But any battling up ahead like this between Thomas and Casper, there's a little bit of Neverlast Racing teamwork going on there to box Casper in And we've seen it happen. CPI doing that exact same thing in the past, and now it's come back against them here because Neverlast Racing has now got themselves into a 1-2 position, and now they need to hope that Nassim can cause Casper some big issues here as Casper tries to get himself back into P2, unable to get the move done on Thomas, who's going to sit in behind. But this is where things are going to get interesting. Will Nassim get himself involved in this for a podium for OVR? I think he will. I think he will go for it here to try and get himself a podium result. And now here comes the DRS train down in towards turn number 1. Nassim, to me, has a quicker car in a straight line, as that is Seb and Brent. They're getting some overtakes done in the back as Imwa and Brent side by side on the exit as Nassim gets all up underneath the rear wing as Casper was looking for a move on Neverlast Racing's Thomas. But look at this now. Seb and Imwa are now almost out of that train, and oh my god, what has gone on at the front? We are turned away at the worst possible time as it looks like Casper getting the move done on Thomas has caused absolute carnage with Nassim, Thomas and Lucas. We are not sure what happened, but is that Nassim with more wing damage? He definitely still has the visual front left end plate gone. But yeah, we went away at the worst possible time there. Apologies to that, to everyone in chat. We should have stayed on board with the front. But yeah, the guys at the front, they're trading positions. I mean, I did not expect any moves to happen down in turn number 4, which is why I went back to the Seb and Imwa. As Jav saying stop spectating the back, we do not care. Jav, we gotta give some screen time now to the guys towards the back. It's only fair. But that, whatever happened at turn number 4 there, between the top 4, has now allowed Seb into this train for the race lead. And remember, he's on the fresher mediums. This is where it's going to be very interesting. Seb and Imwa, fresh mediums compared to these worn hard compound tyres. This is where everything is going to get very interesting. These medium tyres are going to be flying for the next couple of laps, but they are going to fall off towards the end. And now it's going to be about, can you keep it clean? Can you keep your nerve? Can you keep your battery in check? Casper right now is in a Neverlast Racing sandwich. Neverlast Racing are in prime position here to work together as a team to get the maximum out of this race. But we got to keep an eye on what's going on right here as Nassim and Lucan there almost side by side on the exit of turn number 12. And Lucan, that 3-second time penalty now could come back and absolutely haunt him because he could now fall all the way down to P10 in the final pecking order as Seb and Imwa are in position to jump ahead of him. Same with Wards and Turbo Tom. So Lucan here going to be falling down the order quite massively as here comes Lucas for EVE on the Neverlast Racing's Thomas here down the inside. He's going to have a little look. Oh, he's trying it, and Thomas here doing a very good job to cover the inside as much as possible. Keeps Casper guessing as well, but does cover off Lucas here for the final podium position. Remember, Neverlast Racing need both of their drivers in the top 3 here because that is where they are going to be gaining the most, because they can work together as a team to get a 1-2 finish here on the closing laps of this race. They just need to make sure that they work together as a team and get the job done for Neverlast Racing. Of course, EVE, with Lucas being the sole driver for EVE, his whole goal here is to make sure that he can get himself ahead of some of these guys. He needs to finish ahead of Casper to close in on CPI to keep EVE's hopes alive in the championship. And obviously for Casper, with Finley down in 16th place, it looks like Finley might be able to get himself a point in this race. He is currently 1.9 off the back of Matisse in P15, so he is doing enough to get himself a point in this race. But the case will be, is it going to be enough for CPI? That is going to be the question. Nick getting through on Mad Dogs up in the P13, goes the IRT man, scoring some more points for IRT. And remember, GT10. Remember now with GT10, like they are currently in 4th, but Nassim scoring big points. FRT going to be scoring some big points. You got IRT with Seeb scoring some big points. Obviously, you got Duncan, who is what's called potentially going to fall behind Ward, so he's going to be down to 11th. And then you got Nick and himself ahead of Mad Dogs. IRT and FRT and OBR going to be outscoring GT10 here tonight, which, as mentioned at the start of the stream, could potentially drag GT10 from a solid top 4 finish in the championship. Could drag them into a battle with the 3 teams that are competing in the top 5. And here comes Thomas now for Neverlast Racing on CPI's Casper as they run down in towards turn number 1. And it's going to be Thomas moving to the inside. We're going to look on board from Lucas as Casper tries to outbreak and send one down the inside of Ivan there. And look at that, they're absolutely covering off the CPI man. And here comes Thomas once again. He's going to look to try to get a move done on Casper. And Casper, they're just unable to get anything done on Ivan. But that's opened the door for Lucas to send one on the inside of Thomas. And Lucas there up into that final podium position, in the best position in terms of the ERS battery as well between these 3 drivers in behind. Lucan is out of this race. Safety car, lap 33 of 36. A safety car has been deployed. A lifeline has been given to CPI in this race as Finley is now back in this race with no penalties whatsoever. He's going to jump up the order quite considerably, and we're going to see some guys coming into the pit sides for sure, but no one, I think, in the top end of the field will risk coming into the pit lane as Casper is trying to draw up alongside Ivan. Is Casper going to come in? Oh, Casper's in! Casper's in! Casper is into the pit lane, and everyone else is staying out. No, ladies and gentlemen, Casper into the pits. Turbo Toms with a 10-second collision with Seed. Oh my god, ladies and gentlemen, the top 5 staying out on track. Lap 34 of 36. It is incredibly late for a safety car. I think it's going to be at the end of this lap, which is going to be very interesting to see where everyone is going to. I have no words, guys. No words whatsoever. But look at this now. The safety car is in the middle sector now. These guys on the sauce are going to close up to the guys at the front of the pack. The thing is, though, I'm not confident that Finley, Mattis and Spinders will close up. I think they're going to be too far behind. But as you see in this middle sector, everyone is going to bunch up. Casper is going to get onto the back of Brent as we go into sector 3. And the safety car should be in at the end of this lap. I can 100% guarantee it. We're going to get the notification right here, right now. Safety car in at the end of this lap. There it is. There it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Casper on fresh softs, Seed, fresh softs, Turbo Toms, Imwa, Duncan, Mad Dogs, Wards, Nick, I think Mattis, Finley and Spinders too far off the back. I don't think Ivan, Lucas, Thomas and Nassim, as well as Brent, are going to be backing up the pack enough to let these guys close up. So the top 13, take your pick. Who is going to be taking victory right now as we come on to lap 35, the penultimate lap of this race? Ivan is going to get us underway and back to green flag racing. We're going to go on board with Casper though, because Casper on those fresh softs is going to be absolutely flying at the beginning of this restart, and he needs to get these positions ASAP because he can't be affording a battle with the likes of Seeb in behind, who has got support in the chat. And look at this, Casper around the outside of not one but 2 cars, as look at Seeb trying to follow Casper through, coming through turn number 3. Force off track there, a little bit of wheel to wheel contact as Casper now is up into P3 in this race. Has to be careful though, as now Nassim and Lucas side by side for P4. Look at that contact there. That's a bit of front wing off there. See, 10-second time penalty for corner cut and then gaining a position there. I think the stewards may look at that one. Casper though is up into P2. Casper is flying. He's made the perfect strategy choice of coming into the pits and putting on a set of the soft compound tyres at the end of this race. And now we're going to see what is going to happen as we come on to the final lap of this race. There's absolute carnage going down in the middle of the field, but we're staying on this right now. The battle for the race win, the battle for what is going to be bragging rights here at Mexico, as it is going to be Casper closing in on Ivan. Ivan with less grip is not going to have anything to say about Casper, but he does have a little bit more ERS to deploy. And now Casper with the grip advantage will get that position, and Casper should go on to take the race win. And Sieb under pressure from Imwa. Imwa now up into P7 in this race. Brent has absolutely fallen through the order like a stone in water down to P13. Heartbreak for him. What could have been in this race if the safety car did not come out? What could have been for Neverlast Racing? They're still on for a double podium here, so it's still a big result for Neverlast Racing. But look at this. Lucas is essentially pushing Thomas through the S's, and now Lucas with DRS is going to get that position. And look at that, Turbo Toms and Nassim's getting all out of shape there. Nassim and Turbo Toms coming into contact, and that is not going to be good, as Casper will cross the line to take the victory here in Mexico. And Thomas with Turbo Toms side by side to the line, and it's going to be Casper taking the victory ahead of Ivan in second place, Lucas in third, Thomas in fourth, Imwa, fantastic result for him, in fifth, Nassim in sixth, Wards in seventh, Duncan in eighth, Nick in ninth, Finley, CPI's Finley in the top 10, Brent in 11th, Turbo Toms in 12th, Sieb in 13th, sorry, as I believe that 10th second might be looked at, so potentially I don't think that'll be where he ends up, but he's down in 13th at the moment. And we'll run you through the order once again, but Casper making the right choice to go onto a set of softs at that safety car being called, and it is Casper for CPI taking victory for CPI, and of course that is 22 points for them. Of course they are still going to be losing points to Neverlast Racing, but it has been mitigated somewhat due to that safety car. That safety car has played a huge factor for CPI here tonight. But that's running through the order. Is Casper for CPI taking victory ahead of Ivan in P2 for Neverlast Racing. Lucas there in P3 for EVE, with Thomas, the second of the Neverlast Racing drivers, in P4. Imwa for VMV in P5 with Nassim OVR in P6. FRT Wards in P7 with GT10's Duncan in P8. IRT's Nick in P9 with CPI's Finley rounding out the top 10. Then we got Brent for FGE in 11th. Turbo Toms for LR in 12th. Sieb for IRT in 13th. Mathis there for OVR in 14th with the fastest lap of the race as well. And then we got Mad Dogs for GT10 in 15th. Spinners for FGE in 16th. Now non-finishers were Lucan, Wessel, Formula X and LR Flome, who of course did not see the checkered flag here tonight. My, oh my, oh my. There's going to be some talking points after tonight's race. That is for sure, ladies and gentlemen. A very late safety car, a very acute jump into the pits for CPI's Casper, and a victory for CPI here does mitigate some of the points lost that they would have received by the end of this race if the safety car did not get deployed. But will it be next week where CPI take home the championship? That is going to be the question, because Neverlast Racing are going to close in quite considerably on CPI here, and that's how we look and we will be going next week in the championship. Yes, we head here from Mexico up north across the border into the United States. We head to Texas for the Circuit of the Americas, the United States Grand Prix. We head to COTA for round number 11 of the championship before the season finale in Yas Marina at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. 2 rounds to go. 84 points left to be gained. And a championship that is heating up, because Neverlast Racing have gained big on CPI here tonight. And COTA will decide everything going into that final race. Will CPI wrap it up in COTA next week? Time will tell. Will we be going to a season finale? A season finale where everything is on the line? That is going to be the big question. Who is going to win this battle between CPI and Neverlast Racing? Who is going to win this battle for P5 in the championship as well? Let's not forget there's more going on up and down the grid also, with the likes of IRT, OVR and FRT really battling it out for 5th place, and potentially dragging GT10, who are currently in 4th, into that battle. Let's not forget about that one. EVE, has that just cemented them in P3 in the championship now? Has that pretty much solidified their P3 finish in the championship? Are they going to be under threat from GT10 in the closing races? Will they be able to turn it around and try to close back up to the top 2? That is going to be the big, all-important questions, and we will find out next week at round number 11 at the Circuit of the Americas in Texas for the United States Grand Prix. But ladies and gentlemen, what a race that was here tonight. Of course, before we wrap things up here, a massive thank you to our sponsors at Ronin Printworks 3D. Absolute pleasure working with you as always. And guys, we will be back next week for the penultimate race of the championship, round number 11, the Circuit of the Americas, the United States Grand Prix. I will be there, you will be there, and we'll see you at COTA. Until then, guys, it is goodbye from me. Goodbye.